Hi, this is Jack from the Spitfire Audio Customer Experience team. In this video, I'm going to demonstrate the user interface controls for the Hauschka Composer Toolkit library. So once you've added your serial number to native access and linked the library up, it will appear at the top of Kontakt. Clicking the instrument spanner will reveal the patches in this library. So anything that has a .nki file extension can be loaded as a patch. So there are two ways to load a patch in Kontakt. You can either double-click the patch itself, or you can just click and drag this to the right-hand side. There are three interfaces within this library. The first one I'm going to demonstrate is the Evolutions grid. The Evolutions grid is made up of a pegboard. Each peg has a different sound, and you can map that sound to a different note range of the keyboard. For example, up the y-axis of the grid, there are the different note ranges, and across the x-axis are the 8 different types of sound. By clicking in any one of these pegs, we will map a different sound to a different range of the keyboard. This is reflected at the bottom of Kontakt via the different colours. Below each individual sound, you can see that there is 3 different controls: effects, volume and pan. The effects control is an on and off switch for each individual sound, and this determines whether the sound is sent to the 3 different effects on the right hand side. There is then a volume control and a pan control for each individual sound. To the right of the Evo grid, we have the 4 different signals. We have the mix, the pedal effects, the distorted sounds, and also the modular effects. Each one of these can be clicked and then mapped to a different output of Kontakt once you've set up multiple outputs. To the right of these signals, we have the expression control. Expression is a volume control which exists within the master volume of the library. This is mapped to CC number 1. Next is the amplitude envelope: attack, decay, sustain and release. This allows the user to control the shape of the sound. The attack time is how long it takes for the sound to fade in. The decay time is how long it takes for the sound to reach the sustain level from the attack level. The sustain level is set by the S control. The release is then how long it takes the sound to decay to 0 after you've let go of a key. Below the ADSR, we have the 3 different effects: reverb, delay and tape saturation. Each individual effect has its own control. For example, reverb has pre-delay, it has size, and also the return. The delay has the time, a dampening control, panning, feedback, and it also has a return. Tape saturation has 3 different controls, one for gain, the warmth, and also a high frequency roll-off. Moving on to a different interface within the Hauschka library, we'll load the drum kit patch. Instead of loading this as a second patch, I'm going to load it within the first slot of Kontakt. To do this, I can simply drag this on top of an existing patch and click yes to replace it. Here, there are 6 different microphones. So we have the 4 microphones from before, which is the mix, the pedal effects, distortion and the modular effects. However, this time we also add close microphones and also the echo. Again, each microphone can be clicked to assign to a different output. To the right of the microphones, we have the 4 different expression controls. The first is dynamics, mapped to CC number 1. This allows the user to crossfade the different dynamics of the library. Next, we have the tightness control, mapped to CC number 21. This allows the user to sharpen up the transients of the sound or also loosen them off. This will only apply to the short articulations. Expression control again is just the volume within the library. Finally, we have the reverb control. By clicking the spanner, we can access the expert view. Above the microphones, we then have a further 4 different options. By clicking the first option, we can access the velocity curves of this library. This allows us to change the response in relation to our MIDI controllers. The following control is for stereo width and panning, meaning we can pan the microphones or increase or decrease the stereo width. We select the microphones this applies to on the left-hand side. The next control is this music note symbol. The music note symbol is really convenient if you find a particular balance of microphone you really want and you want to keep this when articulation switching. By having this enabled, when you change articulation, the microphone balance will actually change. By having this unchecked, by changing articulation, we preserve the microphones. This means I can have a different microphone balance depending on which articulation I have selected. The final option is this floppy disk control, which enables us to reset and copy the mix settings, paste the mix settings. We can then load and save mix presets also. To demonstrate this, let's say for example the mix setting I currently really like, I want to add to a different patch. I'm going to copy the mix setting and load in a different patch. I'm going to access the expert view and then just paste this mix setting to this patch instead. The next option to the right of the microphone mixer is this presets list. The presets list is a variety of different options for memory saving. For example, if I select the power option or the normal option, you'll notice that the microphones become unloaded, and I'm also taking up less memory. Below this is the purge unused option. By unchecking this, it will load more content into RAM as determined by your memory settings in Kontakt. This means now that when I check any microphone and load more sample content, it's actually already preloaded, which means I have no loading times. Below this we have a transpose option, and then we have a CC mapped velocity option. The CC mapped velocity option only applies to short articulations, and by checking this maps the short articulations to the dynamics control. This will make it not respond to the velocity sensitivity of your controller. To the right of this we have the round robin options, which is where we can borrow from a neighbouring zone or we can layer up the round robins. There is more information in the manual regarding these, but essentially it allows you to increase the number of different round robins so we have more variation in the sound. Below this we can limit the round robins. For example, I can set this round robin count to be 2, so we only ever trigger 2 samples. We can then extend this to 6. The reset from option allows us to place key switches onto the keyboard, as noted at the bottom of the interface, to reset the round robins. So for example, if I trigger the C, I will trigger the first round robin, and then if I press it again, it will reset and not cycle through the round robin list, so I always trigger that first round robin. The key switch count will vary depending on how many round robins you have selected. Below this, finally, is the reset on transport option. This allows us to reset the round robins every time we hit play in our DAW. To the right of this, we have the 4 different expression controls again: dynamics, tightness, expression, and also reverb. In the bottom left-hand corner of the library, we have the key switching shimmier. This allows us to move the default location of the key switches on our controller. The key switches will change the articulation. By right-clicking the CC control, we can change the MIDI CC which is assigned to our UACC standard. The padlock option allows us to lock different types of articulation switching in place, meaning it will only respond to one different type of articulation switching. Finally, in this view, we have the ostinatum. There is a really in-depth tutorial on the ostinatum within our support pages. However, I will give a brief overview here. By turning the mode on, by selecting one of these, we can then program a rhythm into the rhythm engine on the right-hand side. Then, by holding a note down, it will cycle through this rhythm. I advise watching the ostinatum video to learn how to use this in a more in-depth way. So firstly, on the left-hand side, we have the 6 different signals. To the right of this, we have a low and high pass filter. And below this, again, we have the attack, decay, sustain, and release times. Below this, we have a portamento glide option, which allows the user to slide between different notes. To the right of this, we have the 3 different wobble options. This is how we modulate the sound. So we can modulate this through amplitude using the volume option. So clicking in the black box and sliding up or down will increase the speed as to how fast the sound is modulated. The amount control at the bottom of this box is the degree in which it modulates this by. This is the same for pitch and filter on the right hand side of this. Below these controls we have the different effects types for the sound. So we can click to add reverb to the sound or delay. To change the settings of these individual effects, hold down the command option on a Mac or control on a Windows and click the individual effect. Finally, on the right hand side we have the yoke control. Now this allows us to modulate the sound depending on the modulation wheel. So by default, the Y-axis is set to the modulation wheel. So to modulate any effect in real time, on the X-axis we can assign a particular effect, for example chorus. If you have any further questions about the Hauschka library, please get in touch with us at spitfireaudio.com/support. Thanks.